Remember when TV spin-offs were supposed to carry the magic of their originals? In the 1970s, networks cranked them out like factory leftovers, hoping lightning would strike twice. It rarely did. What we got instead were awkward tone shifts, characters that lost their charm, and concepts no one asked for. These 22 sitcom spin-offs weren't just bad, they were embarrassingly bad. So, let's crank the dial back to static and remember the shows you desperately tried to forget. Joanie loves Chachi, 1982 to 1983. Ah yes, Love is Blind, and apparently tone-deaf too. Happy Days had already birthed one successful spin-off with Laverne and Shirley, so why not milk the charm of Joanie and Chachi's teenage romance? The result? Joanie Loves Chachi, a musical sitcom where the duo chased rock and roll dreams in Chicago. Every episode featured Chachi, crooning out painfully forgettable songs, often over heavy vocal processing because, well, let's just say neither Bio nor Aaron Moran were exactly vocal powerhouses. The show was supposed to be youthful, cool, and full of heart. Instead, it came off like a school play that wouldn't end. The jokes were flat, the chemistry fizzled under the weight of bad writing, and the audience realized something tragic. Joanie and Chachi were only interesting when surrounded by Fonzie and the Cunninghams. Without the parental warmth or Fonz's leather jacket cool, the spin-off sank. It's a musical misfire you still can't hum a tune from. Delta House, 1979. Imagine stripping all the raunch, rebellion, and R-rated madness from Animal House, and expecting people to still laugh. That's what ABC did with Delta House, their sanitized, family-friendly spin-off of the infamous frat comedy. John Belushi's Bluto, replaced by a weak imitation named Blotto. The toga parties became tame get-togethers, and the chaotic college fun turned into a watered-down sitcom that wouldn't offend a church picnic. The network wanted the Animal House name without the animal behavior. What they forgot was, the behavior was the whole point. Audiences tuned in expecting the chaos and got, well, student council meetings. Stephen Bishop even reprised his infamous guitar-smashing scene from the movie, hoping for laughs. But when your wildest gag is a déjà vu moment from a better film, you're already in trouble. The show lasted just 13 episodes before being expelled from the network lineup. It's what happens when a revolution gets reduced to a rules manual. Mrs. Columbo, 1779 to 1980. Columbo thrived on mystery, tension, and Peter Falk's legendary performance as the trench-coated sleuth. A big part of the charm? The constant off-screen mentions of his elusive wife. She was like Bigfoot with better fashion, never seen, endlessly imagined. So naturally, NBC ruined it by giving her a face, a backstory, and her own series. Enter Mrs. Columbo, starring a very young Kate Mulgrew, as an investigative journalist/single mom. One problem, Columbo always described his wife as middle-aged and gray-haired, so when a fresh-faced 20-something showed up solving crimes with a baby on her hip, fans were enraged. Mulgrew did her best, but continuity and common sense had already left the building. It flopped so hard that the show's name was changed mid-season to Kate Loves a Mystery. Then they said she wasn't that Columbo's wife. Then they said she wasn't anyone's wife. Even Peter Falk hated it, and stopped mentioning the wife in later episodes. When a spin-off retroactively ruins its source material, you know it deserves a spot on this list. Hello, Larry, 1979 to 1980. Here's a trivia question. What sitcom was so bad that it became Johnny Carson's favorite late-night punching bag? Answer, Hello, Larry. Brought to you by the creators of Different Strokes, this was meant to be a warm-hearted tale of a Portland radio host and his two teenage daughters. What viewers got instead was a charisma vacuum with punchlines that felt lifted from rejected fortune cookies. McLean Stevenson, fresh off MASH, starred as Larry Alder, a radio advice giver who couldn't follow his own advice at home. The tone was confused, part family drama, part workplace comedy, and all parts cringe. Even worse, NBC forced Different Strokes crossovers that made no sense, with the Drummond family suddenly visiting Portland like they had a teleportation machine. Despite a promising lead-in, Hello, Larry Hemorrhage viewers, it became such a joke that you didn't even need to explain the punchline. Just saying the name made audiences groan. As Johnny Carson once quipped, If you missed an episode of Hello, Larry, don't worry, so did everyone else. Enos. Who thought a Dukes of Hazzard spin-off needed a gritty police procedural twist? CBS did. Enos followed Deputy Enos straight as he left the cornfields of Hazard County for the mean streets of Los Angeles. And just like that, the charm evaporated. In Dukes, Enos was the sweet, bumbling deputy with a crush on Daisy Duke. In L.A., he was a fish-out-of-water cop, partnered with a tough, city-wise detective. The problem? Enos's homespun naivety that was endearing back home came across as clueless in the city. The plots were painfully generic, the humor didn't land, and the show had no real identity. It wasn't funny enough to be a comedy or serious enough to be a drama. The final insult? The show was canceled so abruptly that the cast found out when they arrived at the studio and saw the set being dismantled. If there was ever a case for a character staying in their lane, or their county, it's this one. Galactica 1980. Here's how you disappoint an entire galaxy of fans in just one season. Launch Galactica 1980. The original Battlestar Galactica had been canceled too soon, but ABC wasn't ready to let go. Instead of continuing the high-stakes space opera, they crash-landed into this cringe fest, where the remnants of humanity finally reached Earth and started riding flying motorcycles. Gone were the dramatic battles with the Cylons. In came kids with superpowers, clunky time travel plots, and the cast of the original mostly vanished, except poor Lorne Greene, left to exposit from a command center that looked suspiciously like a closet with blinking lights. The epic interstellar vibe was replaced with weekly lesson of the day, Earth adventures, and out-of-place slapstick. Budget cuts meant hardly any action in space, because lasers are expensive, but awkward street scenes aren't. And those futuristic motorcycles, they looked like leftover props from a canceled Evil Knievel special. The show sputtered through 10 episodes before mercifully being canceled. Want a masterclass in how to ruin a rich, ambitious sci-fi franchise in under a year? Galactica 1980 is required viewing, or rather, it's required forgetting. The Ropers, 1979 to 1980. From nosy neighbors to nobody's favorite leads, the Ropers spun off from Three's Company and promptly crashed into a brick wall of apathy. Stanley and Helen Roper were fun in small doses, grouchy landlords who eavesdropped on Jack Tripper's every move and bickered about their ice-cold bedroom life. But give them 30 minutes to themselves? Yikes. The concept was simple. Move the couple from their Three's Company apartment complex into an upscale neighborhood and watch the awkwardness unfold. But without Jack's antics to mock, or Janet and Chrissy's chaos to observe, their bickering turned stale. Every episode recycled the same joke. Helen wanted affection, Stanley wanted his recliner. To make things worse, Norman Fell had to be talked into the spin-off with a contract clause allowing him to return to Three's Company if the Ropers flopped. It did. But ABC waited just long enough to void the clause. Fell was stuck, the Ropers were sunk, and fans were stuck wondering how two scene-stealing characters became so unwatchable so quickly. Without Jack Tripper to react to, their shtick had no punch. They left the party and took the punchline with them. Tabitha, 1977 to 1978. Take a classic like Bewitched, add time travel logic that makes your head hurt, and you get Tabitha. In theory, the idea was charming. Samantha's daughter is all grown up and trying to balance her career and her magical powers. In practice, it was a continuity disaster with wand-waving nonsense that even die-hard fans couldn't follow. Tabitha was suddenly in her 20s, working at a TV station, while her younger brother Adam was now inexplicably older than her. Did they time travel? Were we in an alternate universe? Was it a spell gone wrong? The show never explained. Audiences were too busy scratching their heads. Lisa Hartman did her best to capture the spark Elizabeth Montgomery brought to Samantha, but the nose-twitching charm just wasn't there. The writing recycled old Bewitched plots with none of the chemistry or heart. And let's not forget, none of the three actresses who played Tabitha on the original show returned, further confusing longtime fans. In the end, Tabitha felt like someone took a beloved family recipe and substituted every ingredient. It looked the same on the outside, but tasted all wrong. Delta House, 1979. Yes, it's worth bringing up Delta House again, because the level of nerfing done to the Animal House legacy deserves multiple warnings. Turning a raunchy, unapologetic college comedy into a network-friendly sitcom is like making a horror movie with no scares. The rebellion was gone. The frat bros were declawed. They even brought back some characters, but toned them down until they felt like Saturday morning cartoon versions of their R-rated selves. Josh Mostel played a stand-in for Belushi's Bluto, but without the energy, charisma, or anarchy that made the original iconic. The network cut every rough edge until nothing remained but blandness. This was a frat house without beer, nudity, or rebellion. Just polite hijinks and laugh tracks trying their best to pretend something outrageous just happened. The wild, feral energy of the movie got swapped for middle-of-the-road family sitcom fare. And the audience? They were out the door by episode 13. It's the spin-off equivalent of someone telling a wild party story, and forgetting all the wild parts. Gloria, nitten otito, till nitten otitre. Let's talk about one of the most unnecessary and painfully awkward attempts to extend the all-in-the-family universe. Gloria. Sally Struthers was beloved as Archie Bunker's liberal daughter. Her ideological sparring with Archie and sweet chemistry with Rob Reiner's meathead gave the original show its soul. But take all that away, there's not much left. Gloria picks up after her divorce from Mike, now a single mom working at a veterinary clinic in upstate New York. It's like someone took the most interesting pieces of her character and locked them in a box marked "Do Not Use." With no Archie to rage against and no husband to ground her in conflict, Gloria was left floundering in sitcom limbo. The jokes landed like wet newspaper. The tone tried to balance working mom struggles with workplace sitcom gags, but failed to connect. Even brief cameos from Carol O'Connor couldn't jolt it back to life. And Struthers, though earnest, couldn't carry the entire show without the original ensemble. It was a spin-off that proved a simple truth. Being part of something iconic doesn't guarantee you can be iconic alone. Out of the Blue, 1979. If you ever wondered what would happen if Happy Days met Touched by an Angel, and it wasn't touching at all, meet Out of the Blue. This was ABC's idea of divine comedy. Random, an angel in training, sent to Earth to live with a family and do good deeds to earn his wings. No, seriously. His name was Random. Random first appeared in a Happy Days crossover episode in a desperate attempt to tie the show to something familiar. It didn't help. Not even the Fonz could bless this mess. Out of the Blue tried to blend heartfelt family moments with goofy fantasy elements, but the result was less bewitched and more bewildered. He lived with the Schaefer family, helped with chores, taught moral lessons, and zapped things with celestial powers. The audience? They wanted to zap their TVs. Adding insult to injury, ABC scheduled it opposite 60 Minutes, the highest-rated show on TV. It never stood a chance. If you're trying to make viewers believe in angels, don't give them one who looks like he's moonlighting from a canceled musical. Random didn't get his wings. He barely got 5 episodes. Blansky's Beauties, 1977. Take one forgotten Happy Days cousin. Add a troupe of Vegas showgirls, sprinkle in Scott Baio, and you've got Blansky's Beauties. A show that felt like someone dared ABC to make the most confusing spin-off ever. Nancy Blansky was supposedly Howard Cunningham's cousin, though you'd be forgiven for not remembering her name from Happy Days, because she never appeared before this. The show was set in contemporary Las Vegas, while Happy Days was still pretending it was 1959 Milwaukee. The timeline gymnastics alone gave audiences a headache. Then came the Showgirls. Nancy managed a glitzy cast of glamorous women, offering them tough love life advice between poorly timed punchlines. Scott Baio was here too, but not as Chachi, even though he'd later play Chachi. Confused, so was everyone else. The humor was stale, the characters were cardboard cutouts, and the whole show felt like it was desperately trying to cash in on glitz, nostalgia, and star power without having any of its own. It was canceled in under a season. Even Vegas knows when a gamble isn't worth it. The Brady Brides, 1981. The Brady Bunch was iconic for its squeaky clean charm. So, when Marcia and Jan got hitched and moved in together with their new husbands in the Brady Brides, you'd think it would bring that same wholesome chaos. You'd be wrong. What we got instead was an awkward dated sitcom about shared mortgages and who left dishes in the sink. Marcia's husband was laid back and messy. Jan's was uptight and orderly. Cue the sitcom hijinks. But unlike the original Brady Bunch, which had 6 kids, groovy style, and timeless family humor, the Brady Brides offered adult problems wrapped in lame one-liners. The magic was gone. Florence Henderson made occasional cameos, but not even her warm presence could save the show. The writing tried to age up the Brady humor without understanding that the appeal was always rooted in innocence, not adult squabbles about phone bills. Instead of nostalgia, fans got something that felt like a bad stage play in a half-empty community theater. The title promised a Brady-level reunion. What it delivered was a flat sitcom that reminded everyone why the Bradys worked better as kids. Mr. T and Tina, 1976. This could have been groundbreaking. Instead, it was a cultural car crash. Mr. T and Tina was the first American sitcom to feature an Asian American lead, Pat Morita. It should have been historic. Instead, it became a masterclass in how not to write cross-cultural comedy. Morita played Taro Takahashi, a Japanese inventor living in Chicago. His live-in housekeeper was Tina, a clumsy American woman who misunderstood everything about Japanese culture. Each episode revolved around Tina bumbling through customs and Taro reacting like someone who regretted signing the lease. The show's big joke, culture clash. That was it. Instead of bridging communities or offering insightful comedy, Mr. T and Tina leaned into stereotypes so hard they broke. Mispronunciations, awkward bowing, and fish-out-of-water moments replaced actual character development. What could have been a tender exploration of East meets West turned into a 22-minute cringe reel. Critics panned it. Audiences tuned out. ABC pulled the plug after just 5 episodes. It remains a painful reminder that representation without respect isn't progress. It's parody. Flo. Kiss my grits. That iconic line from Alice made Flo a breakout star. She was bold, brash, and unfiltered. Exactly what made her shine in a diner full of eccentric characters. So, naturally, CBS thought she could anchor her own show. Thus, Flo was born, and just as quickly, forgotten. The concept had Flo returning to her hometown of Cowtown, Texas, to open her own diner. What sounded like a down-home success story quickly became a cautionary tale. With Flo now the boss, her rebellious charm had nowhere to bounce off. She was no longer the underdog. She was the system. The humor felt forced, the supporting characters forgettable, and the charm she wielded so effortlessly at Mel's diner fizzled when she was calling the shots. It turns out sass needs something to sass against. Audiences tuned in for the catchphrase, but quickly realized there was nothing else to hold them there. Despite a massive premiere audience of 40 million, ratings plummeted. Without the original ensemble and energy of Alice, Flo became a one-woman show that didn't know what it was saying anymore. Turns out, grits aren't always better served solo. Checking in, 1981. Florence Johnston, the wisecracking maid from the Jeffersons, was always good for a laugh and a reality check. She had zingers sharp enough to put George Jefferson in his place. So CBS thought, why not give her her own show? Thus was born Checking In, a show about Florence running housekeeping operations at a fancy New York hotel. The problem? Take a supporting character with punchy one-liners and put her in charge of a luxury hotel. And suddenly, the spark vanishes. Florence, now the boss, had to juggle snooty guests, hotel staff, and workplace drama. But the writers forgot the magic. Florence worked best when reacting to George's chaos, not managing her own. The show was plagued from the start, delayed by a writer's strike, and cursed with forgettable side characters. The hotel setting lacked the tension and warmth of the Jeffersons' apartment, and Florence's trademark sass just didn't hit the same when she was the straight-laced boss. Ratings tanked. After just 4 episodes, CBS pulled the plug. How did they explain it away on the Jeffersons? A fire at the hotel, and Florence came right back, like the whole thing never happened. And honestly, most viewers pretended it didn't. Who's Watching the Kids? 1978. Let's play a game. Take 1 part. Happy Days, add 1 part Vegas nightclub, mix in teen babysitters and disco lights. And you get Who's Watching the Kids? One of the most tonally confused spin-offs in TV history. And yes, it's technically part of the Happy Days universe. Just don't try to figure out how. Scott Baio stars as a teenage singer working at a Vegas nightclub alongside his buddy while babysitting younger siblings. The show tried to blend coming-of-age comedy with nightclub performances and slapstick babysitting disasters. It was like someone smashed 3 shows together and hoped nobody noticed. The plot, character names, and even the show's structure changed multiple times across 11 episodes. There was no continuity, no logic, and no connection to Happy Days except for a vague mention in some promo material. Even Baio has distanced himself from it, as if he's afraid someone might still have the footage. Viewers couldn't figure out who the show was for: kids, teens, nightclub regulars. It's like walking into a Chuck E. Cheese and finding a burlesque review. Nobody asked for this combination. The Practice, 1976 to 1977. If you ever wondered what would happen if you took a beloved 1950s TV dad and tried to reboot him as a cranky doctor with no bedside manner, The Practice has your answer. Danny Thomas, famous for Make Room for Daddy, returned to television as Dr. Jules Bedford, a Queens physician who somehow seemed to hate medicine and everyone around him. The show tried to ride on Thomas's classic charm, but it was gone. Bedford ran a tiny clinic with his daughter and son-in-law, and every episode featured him yelling at patients, grumbling about bureaucracy, or making outdated jokes. Audiences didn't get warmth or nostalgia, they got secondhand irritation. Shelley Fabares played his daughter, and despite her efforts, nothing could balance the grumpiness that dominated the tone. The show wasn't mean enough to be edgy, but wasn't sweet enough to be comforting. It just sat in a weird middle ground, unfunny, unmemorable, and utterly unnecessary. Fun fact, CBS tried to recycle the concept a year later with Doc, starring Barnard Hughes, and most viewers didn't even realize it was a reboot. That's how forgettable The Practice was. It vanished without a trace, or a diagnosis. Young Maverick, 1779 to 1980. Young Maverick is the perfect example of how to revive a beloved classic and immediately trip over your own spurs. James Garner's original Maverick was smart, suave, and sharp-witted, a Western hero who could bluff his way out of anything. So CBS tried to continue the legacy with Brett Maverick's nephew Ben, played by Charles Frank. Except, was he a nephew? A cousin? The show couldn't decide. Sometimes Ben was related to Brett, sometimes not. Sometimes the family tree grew new branches mid-episode. It was a continuity nightmare. Worse, Charles Frank lacked Garner's effortless charm. Ben Maverick felt like a store-brand version of the original, polished but bland. The writing tried to mimic the clever con-man-style plots of the original, but failed to deliver the snappy dialogue or clever twists that made Maverick so iconic. The worst blow came from the network itself. They aired Young Maverick opposite Chips, which was dominating ratings at the time. Unsurprisingly, the show was gunned down in a ratings shootout. Sometimes you can't just put a new actor in an old hat and expect it to fit. This one never did. Walter, 1984, unaired pilot. Now, for a spin-off so bad, so ill-conceived, CBS didn't even air it. That's right. Walter, the proposed spin-off for Radar O'Reilly from MASH, is the cringe gold standard. You know you've gone off the rails when your sweet teddy bear clutching company clerk is suddenly a grizzled city cop in St. Louis. Gary Berghoff returned as Radar, now just Walter, who's left his Iowa farm and failed marriage to become a police officer. It's like turning Winnie the Pooh into a beat cop. There was no humor, no warmth, and certainly no wartime camaraderie. The pilot tried to be a gritty dramedy, but ended up an awkward Frankenstein monster with mismatched tones and zero charm. Walter's kindness and emotional intelligence worked in the chaos of a mobile army hospital, not in a city where he was supposedly chasing down burglars and writing parking tickets. The pilot was screened once to test audiences and executives. That was enough. CBS buried it faster than you can say Hawkeye. Today, Walter exists only as an urban legend among MASH fans, a cautionary tale about knowing when to let beloved characters rest. Phyllis, 1975 to 1977. You'd think a spin-off from the Mary Tyler Moore Show couldn't go wrong. You'd be wrong. Phyllis, starring Cloris Leachman as Mary's self-absorbed landlady, tried to turn a deliciously annoying side character into a main course. The result? Emotional indigestion. Phyllis moves to San Francisco after her husband dies, living with her in-laws and dealing with widowhood, class issues, and perpetual awkwardness. The supporting characters were fine, but nothing clicked. Without Mary as a straight man contrast, Phyllis's antics weren't funny. They were exhausting. Audiences quickly realized that a little Phyllis went a long way. A lot of Phyllis? Unbearable. Despite strong acting from Leachman, the tone wavered between sad, shrill, and surreal. Worse, multiple cast members tragically passed away during production, giving the show an unshakable pall of gloom. The show limped into a second season, but was put down before it could embarrass itself further. Sometimes, the comic relief works best in the background, not the spotlight. Aftermash, 1983 to 1985. We end where we began, with the spin-off that shattered millions of hopeful hearts. Aftermash was supposed to carry the legacy of MASH, a show so beloved that its finale was the most watched episode in TV history. CBS couldn't resist cashing in. But when you remove the chaos of war, Alan Alda's wit, and the life and death stakes, what's left? Colonel Potter, Father Mulcahy, and Klinger reunite at a VA hospital in Missouri. Sounds heartfelt, right? Except it wasn't. Without the war, the show lost all urgency. Without Hawkeye, it lost its soul. What remained was a bland medical sitcom that tried to mix gentle laughs with gentle tears and ended up with gentle boredom. Critics pounced, viewers fled, and even TV Guide called it one of the worst shows of all time. CBS spent $500,000 per episode, only for it to be remembered as the poster child for why some classics should be left alone. Aftermash wasn't just a letdown. It was a betrayal of everything that made its predecessor iconic. Beautiful memories should stay beautiful, not rebooted. Spin-offs are a gamble, and these 22 shows lost big time. Some stretched canon, others insulted it, and a few just left viewers blinking in confusion. Which of these disasters do you remember? And which ones are you still pretending never aired? Hit subscribe, and let's keep uncovering TV's weirdest relics. Would you like a thumbnail title, hook, and description to go with this script for YouTube?